do I? Alright. And 3, 2, 1. Whoa. Alright. And we're live. 3, 2, 1. Whoa. And we're live. Awesome. Alright, where are you at, mouse? Welcome back to the show. So if anyone is actually watching this, hi. Welcome to my first, hopefully this has actually got people watching this thing live stream, called What Do You Do with a Drunken Sailor? My basic goal in this one is to talk about various aspects of naval combat in the early 20th century and what various historical factors and events shaped the design of warships in this time. So, with that being said, I figured I'd start off with something fairly mundane, fairly fun, fairly simple, all that jazz, blah 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 blah, yada yada yada. If you guys have questions, feel free to ask them in the comments below. So what I'm going to start out is the history of the modern battleship, which in and of itself is ironic because no battleships have been built since the 1950s, with the last one being launched was, I believe, from Great Britain. So what I'm looking at here is the USS Missouri. She's a Iowa-class battleship, and she is the last battleship to be built by the United States. She sports 9 16-inch by 54 caliber guns in her modern configuration. Along with that, she mounts 4 20mm phalanx close inboard weapon systems, 36 Harpoon and Tomahawk missiles, and all the other various smaller caliber guns, the 5-inchers you see here, the 40mm Bofors guns mounts. If you went to Pearl Harbor, Hawaii today to go see the USS Missouri, you would not see any of these. You would not see these. These were all taken off during her most recent modernization, which was in the 80s. So what are you looking at here on the Iowa? Well, you're looking at the culmination of about 100 years really worth of battleship development, of ship development and design. And this all starts out about 100 years before her modern refit. So go back to about the 1800s, late 1800s. A guy by the name of Alfred Thayer Mahan wrote a book called The History of Sea Power Upon the World. In it, he discusses 3 arguments of what defines a modern nation. I'll switch that off here so we can go look at her a little bit better. But basically, he argues for 3 things. First off, any nation to be considered a true power has to have access to the sea. And on top of that, she also has to be able to access, or not just have access to the sea, but protect her access to the sea against foreign sea powers that may want to deny them access to the sea. And at the same time, she also has to deny access to the sea to her enemies. So to do this, he establishes the idea of two things for fleet, for modern navies. And this is going to come from historical context that was well over 100 of several battles that took place between 1600 to 1778 or 1786. It's whatever years are on the book. Basically, he points out several key battles that happened at that time that were as he calls, decisive naval battles, where basically one country's navy rendered the other country's navy non-existent in their forms of ability to project sea power. The other thing and these are several battles such as like the Battle of Lepanto in the 1500s, where the combined forces of the Christian Navy defeated the Ottoman Navy and started the 400-year-long decline of the Ottoman Empire. Then there's the several other key major naval battles, such as like the defeat of the Spanish Armada, which promulgated the rise of British sea power. There's the Battle of Trafalgar, which the Napoleonic Navy ceased to exist after the combined armed forces of the coalition that rose up against Napoleon. There's the Battle of Mobile Bay, which actually occurred during Mahan's lifetime because he was actually a officer in the United States Navy during the Civil War, where the Confederate Navy ceased to be. But you're getting this, right? Where basically ship combat of the era, yes, there are several major naval battles that I can pull up a dozen off the top, where it's one ship against another ship. I mean, you can go to the Revolutionary War with the USS Bonhomme Richard against the HMS Serapis. You can go the numerous conflicts the USS Constitution has had against various British ships. You can pull up the sinking of the CSS Alabama, the Battle of Hampton Roads. All these things are naval battles, yes, but they're not decisive in the fact that even after that battle, one of the two belligerents navies still existed. The major ones were where their navies ceased to exist, and they ceased to be able to project sea power. So, Mahan's book was revolutionary. Basically, every officer in every nation that got their hands and read this book was like, this dude makes sense. And they were looking at the way naval combat was going, and they were seeing trends. And this promulgated the start of the largest naval buildup in the history of mankind. Matter of fact, many people believe that Alfred Thayer Mahan is the most influential U.S. author of the 19th century. He actually is. He's kind of the reason why World War I happened. He's one of the reasons why, at least. So, that's where this comes into. Basically, the effects of this book obviously led to World War I, with the various sea powers building bigger, more powerful warships to one-up their opponents. The British, the Germans, the Americans, all that. So there were a couple of advances in technology, in the effects of sea power, that also made this buildup happen as well. One of which was the advent of steam turbines replacing coal boilers inside of ships. Obviously, that was another thing you said, was for a sea power to be able to project itself, it needed to have overseas bases from which to resupply and refuel their ships. The other thing that happened was a change in ship concept design, and I'm bringing up the USS South Carolina to be an example of this change in concept design. Originally, battleships before the Carolina, before 1908, all battleships had this very interesting design, where it was basically an amalgamation of large, medium, and small caliber guns slapped all over the ship. They were super slow, and they were really just designed to slug it out at close ranges. As a matter of fact, the last major battle between countries that had pre-dreadnought battleships and only used those was the Battle of Tsushima Straits in 1906 during the Russo-Japanese War, where the Japanese battleship Mikasa and the Russian fleet, well, the Japanese battleship Mikasa was also escorted by a bunch of other ships, but she's the most recognized ship of that battle because she's still the last surviving pre-dreadnought battleship in the world. I'm getting ahead of myself here, but basically the engagement ranges of these ships was less than 1.5 kilometers from each other. This would be considered a knife fight between warships. The idea was to get in close to use all the weapon systems of the ship to engage the targets. They slapped all these guns on the ship because, again, most naval combat before Mahan wrote his book was one ship versus another ship. It may be a six-rate ship of the line against a first-rate ship of the line, which was basically having a 26-gun frigate or 32-gun frigate go up against a 108-gun ship of the line. So they had to be prepared for any kind of engagement scenario against any kind of ship. So that's, the smaller caliber guns were designed to ward off patrol boats, torpedo boats, destroyers, ships that were supposed to get in closer to engage that ship with the larger ship with their torpedoes. Now, there was a change in all of this in 1908. In 1908, the change happened that affected everything overnight. What happened was in 1908, the British launched a warship called the HMS Dreadnought. She was what is known as the first all-big gun caliber ship. They took all her medium gun calibers, the 8-inch guns, the 9-inch guns, the 6-inch guns, the 7.5-inch guns, and they took them off. They took them all off because they realized that the ship engagement ranges, and this was done the same thing with the U.S. Ordnance Board at the same time. The South Carolina class and the Dreadnought class were being developed at the same time. The Dreadnought came first because there were some people in the U.S. Ordnance Board that were basically clinging on to this old, antiquated idea that battleships need to be slow, lumbering ships that need to move slowly and precautiously into the enemy, need to get a knife range with destroyers, bad idea, and engage them with all their guns. And then all the revolutionaries were pretty much, the revolutionaries won, obviously. The guys who were like, no, we need to have all big gun caliber ships, and we need to have them so that we can engage at the maximum effective range of those guns. Needless to say, obviously, the group that wanted the all big gun caliber ships went out because you're trading off all the weight of all these smaller caliber ships for bigger guns that have a farther reach. You are protecting your ship by keeping your enemy at a distance. Again, these guns were getting bigger, the ammunition was also changing, the chemical composition of the powder was changing. During the Civil War, for example, the majority of, well, all the chemical composition of the bullets used was black powder. Black powder does not burn efficiently. Large battleships were firing black powder charged weapons. And then another revolution happened in the mid to late 1800s with the introduction of smokeless powder. This chemical actually burns a lot faster, a lot cleaner, a lot more efficiently, so it propels the projectile a lot faster, and it sends the weapon, it sends that projectile downrange a lot farther because of that. So again, battleships are now getting bigger guns. They're getting, well, they've always had 12-inch guns. Everybody had 12-inch guns, battleships at the time. The Germans had 11-inch guns, but that's beside the point. But the concept is there. Big gun battleships with modern steam turbine engines or oil-burning engines are suddenly going to move a lot faster. People buy into Mahan's principle of building up these all big gun battleships because that is how they foresee future conflicts to happen. They want to have that decisive naval engagement. They want people to go out there and sally forth into, these big naval engagements. And the first, honestly, the Battle of Tsushima Straits was one of these first examples that said, yeah, look at the casualties they sustained because both sides sustained because their ships were getting within knife fight range of each other. We need to have our big guns working a lot more efficiently. So that was how the concept of the all big gun battleship came about. Another thing was changing the armor layout of the ship. So if I go here, boom. So what we can see, we're looking at Belafon's armor. Her maximum armor is 329 millimeters, and that's on her gun turrets, on her casemates. As you can see, the magazine well leading down to here, and her citadel armor plating. So why is she thinner up top? Well, again, this is another new battleship concept design where they're armoring everything that is essential for the ship's combat performance, cutting down everything else. It saves weight. A less heavy ship is a faster ship. A lighter ship is a faster ship, not less heavy ship. We get the example. I'm Englishing terribly today. But we get that idea. Y'all get the concept here, right? So you're probably wondering, Chris, get on with the gameplay. I want to see you blow ships out of the water, or fail miserably doing so. I'm getting there. I'm trying to explain to you why ships today are the way they are. So again, Belafon class is basically an upgraded Dreadnought class. The only difference was, again, the other upgrades they had going on with ships at the time was that torpedoes, again, originally weapons that were only maybe had a half a kilometer range on them, hence why all these Dreadnoughts had these large calibers, were getting progressively better. They were improving. Torpedoes would suddenly get farther ranges. You now had torpedoes that could engage a target at 2 kilometers, 3 kilometers, 4 kilometers, 5 kilometers, 6, etc., 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 farther and farther away. So obviously, bigger guns on a battleship means the battleship can hang back and engage the target at a safe distance with its guns. So that was how the British all the nations developed their battleships. Now, if we can look at the HMS Belafon, we can look at the SMS Nassau, which was Germany's first class of Dreadnought-style battleships, and pardon the camouflage, that's a little bit better. That's a little bit better. We can see that there's something about these two ships that differ from the South Carolina, as y'all were seeing, in that they both had wing turrets. This was a European thing. I mean, if we even go back to, well, if I pulled up the Tier 3 French battleship, which, give me a second, I'll go pull that up. The Tier 3 French battleship actually didn't exist. The Tourian, is that how it's pronounced? Tourian? Tureen. Alright. Tureen was actually, this is not really a battleship. This is not really a Dreadnought battleship. This ship was a pre-Dreadnought battleship. And we can tell by her just by looking at the design. Again, big 12-inch guns, but lots and lots of numerous smaller caliber guns on her. I mean, 20 small caliber guns, big guns, very limited firing range, but they're 12-inch guns. This was a concept design ship, and I mean to put that in quotes. The first real Dreadnought-style battleship the French had ever built was the Corbeil, which is what she is right here. Again, I'm using a camouflage pattern from the game. I play this game for fun. I'm going to put that on there. So, there we go. An actual camouflage pattern design, not something crazy designed to get you XP. But as we can see, there's, secondary guns on her still. Obviously, because, these big guns, they take about 30 seconds to reload. That's their rate of fire. If in the event that, destroyers did get in close, they have these secondary guns here designed to protect them. And again, as I'm telling you guys this, the battleship design had these European ships had this wing gun design throughout their ships. The Nassau, the Bellefonds, the Corvette, the Italian battleships, which sadly we don't have any in this game. Hell, if I go pull up the Japanese battleship, Kawachi. Go pull her up. Sometime today would be nice, game. Yeah. So let's go bring up the battleship Kawachi. Again, hexagonal gun arrangement. This is a European design. This is an old Prima-hand ship layout design. They are still keeping with the design of old style battleships. They are keeping in line with having all these guns, having all these angles of fire on them, because they were bracing in the idea of single ship on ship engagement, where if another ship showed up on a flank that you weren't engaging, you still could bring firepower to bear on that ship. The problem was that the ships were not very seaworthy. They were slow. They tended to list one way or the other on this, and also the ammunition storage for these wing turrets is a lot more exposed So if these things took a lucky hit, there was a very big, and it penetrated and it detonated, there's a very good chance that could blow up the magazine, and as a result of it blowing up the magazine, could sink the ship. The U.S. Ordnance Board was looking at this problem, and when they developed the South Carolina class, they were having, the idea of how do we protect the ship and how do we save on weight. Those were the two big questions they were asking. So how did they save on the armor? They basically said, okay, from the A turret, which is the front turret right here, to the X turret, this is where we're going to put the armor of the ship at. And if I pull up the armor layout of the ship, boom. If I pull up the armor layout, there we go. We can see that from the A turret right here, and a little bit further, just in case a glancing shell goes in, there's armor. There's armor protecting the machine space in the middle, armor protecting the magazines, but not on the non-essential combat structures. So, not on the superstructure, not on the bows where the crew would live, not in the stern where the crew would live, but in the essential areas. So now they figured, okay, how do we keep the ability to have our enemy and be able to engage them by massing all of our firepower at one spot? And this was an ingenious design. The Americans were the first ones to do this. They decided to make super firing turrets, which is basically one gun turret on top of the other one, and then they would do the same again in the back. At the same time, again, 3-inch guns on her are designed to stop smaller ships with torpedoes from getting in close and dissuading them while the main batteries were reloading. So this is the first step in the buildup of dreadnought-style battleships. These are the early infant stages of this design. So let's actually break out and have a look and see how the combat of these ships are to be played. I know, about time I finally got to stop shooting my mouth off and actually go in and start playing the game. And right as I do that, I have to pee. Great. Also, I'm letting you guys know I'm playing with a bit of a handicap. I have a cat sitting on me. So now you're probably asking, these guys were building up their navies to combat one another. How did this lead to World War I? Well, you tried buying a bunch of big, expensive toys, and then and then being told you can't use them. So you're going to always look for an excuse to use them. Alright, so we're in a tier 4 match, which basically means I'm bottom tiered, but I am going to try to demonstrate the concept that these have. So like I said, wing turret design, inferior. It is an inferior design, and it's a design you don't see because obviously the British got smart, they dropped it. The next class of dreadnought battleships they built, the Orion class, which as much as I will show it, as I want to show it to you, I'm not. I'm here to demonstrate how this game plays out. Great. I have team killers on my team. Alright. Alrighty, so as we can see, the ships are still rather slow. The reason for the South Carolina's slow top speed compared to her other ships of her other battleships of her tier is the fact that, again, in saving the weight, they had to cut down on the number of boilers she could carry. So while she was still superior to her other class of battleships, she was slower than the other European designs because the U.S. have an interesting thing that the other ships don't. There's a problem that the U.S. has to solve with every warship they build. They can only build their warships to a certain width, to a certain beam. And that beam is also got to be the same thing as, it has to be, basically the U.S. design is because the U.S. is a Atlantic and Pacific Ocean dwelling nation. Getting ships from one side of the nation to the other always has to be taken into account. What is the fastest, most efficient way we can get our ships to where they're needed to be. I'm about to get torpedoed here. I'm pretty sure I feel it. Unless that fighter group. Thank you. It's going after it. Alright. So, the problem the U.S. faces is getting ships to the other side of the country the fastest. This problem was solved in the early 1900s with the construction of the Panama Canal, which the completion of the Panama Canal has affected the layout and the design of U.S. warships since its completion, essentially. The reason for this is because the Panama Canal, the channels are only so wide, and if your ship is too wide, it can't fit through the Panama Canal. The Japanese didn't have this problem. The Germans really didn't have this problem. He's about to get torpedoed. No sense in wasting a salvo on. Oh, he might miss. Alright, so yeah, put these 12-inch guns to work. A little too much lead. And we're going to turn. But as you can see, I was able to mass my firepower on him and fire. Gave him a little too much lead, but again, you can see where I was going with this. So now I'm going to wait for my guns to reload, turning to get away from enemy ships. But anyway, like I was saying, the Panama Canal. That is her importance. The U.S. ships can only be built as wide as the Panama Canal will allow them to be. The width of the locks on the Panama Canal. I'm about to get my butt torpedoed here by... Alright, let's get out of here before these guys light me up. Keep turning, 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 keep turning. We got a penetrating hit on the Bellefonte. I'm about to get, yeah. About to get cross-dropped here. Yeah, I'm gonna eat one. Might eat two. She does not turn, and because of that, I'm now out of position. That Bellefonte can put rounds on me, and I'm going to have to wait a second to get rounds back on him to re-engage him. I'm on the wrong flank. Let's just put it that way, boys and girls. Alright, pull it away. Let this Wyoming come in and help us here. We bounced off of him. Anyway, so, like I said, this is why they had to also cut the wake down. She can't be too wide, otherwise she won't fit through the Panama Canal, which will make her pretty damn useless, because now she has to sail around Africa, sail around the Straits of Magellan, which is in South America, the southernmost tip of South America. There we go. Burn. He's a one-fire kind of guy. That's not a good thing for him. Anyway, so like I was saying, they have to sail around the. Otherwise they have to sail through the Panama Canal. That's why U.S. battleships can only be built so wide, which means they can only carry so much armament, which means they can only have so much weight on them. Otherwise, they are not going to be effective at... Oh, I'm going the wrong way. Other way, Chris. And now he's going to eat torpedoes from that destroyer. Again, he got too friendly with that destroyer, and he's going to sink because of that. He ate a lot of damage from that round, from that salvo. Alrighty, so, like I said, that's why. The Japanese, if you look at the Yamato, compare her to the width of a Iowa-class battleship. Again, the Yamato is a lot wider than a Missouri-class. I need fighter support. Anti-air support. Do you mind, not being a useless player carrier? Oh, there's a carrier in the AO. And he's just sitting in the cap like a noob. Will I get onto carriers? Maybe when they fix them in this game, I will. But until then, no, I'm not. Oh, broadside AP would have been perfect on him right there. About to get hit again. Where are my AA guns at? Oh, they got shot off. Oh no! I'm naked! I'm naked against aircraft. This is not a good thing. Oh, I still got aircraft. I still got AA guns. Okay. Okay. Let's go empty the barrels on him. See how those shells do. Oh! He's gonna feel that. He's gonna burn to death. That Phoenix is dead. Alright. As you can see, I am flying like a drunk madman trying to get these guys to throw their aim off, throw their shells off, blah 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 blah. Super slow, big battleship. I know his max speed's like 18 knots. So I'm going to fire right a little less lead than what the indicator tells me. Still a little too much lead, a little too short. He's pulling away. So yeah, that's why the American ships had this design. They had to take into account getting across the Panama Canal. Now, why is this such a big thing? Again, the other European powers had colonies in the Far East, but the other European powers had the Suez Canal to get to their areas. Again, another hotspot, key location during the First World War was actually the British trying to get the Arabs to overthrow their government so they can get access to the Suez Canal and deny the Germans access to the Suez Canal. Let's see if these will hit. Those look like good shots. Oh! Yeah, he's gonna feel that. What I just hit him was I hit him in the vital spot, basically. I hit him where the sun's not supposed to shine, where he's not supposed to have to worry. How are we doing so far? We're winning. Okay, that's an Orion class, and he's slowing his butt down. He's probably getting ready for an HE salvo. He's dead. Good thing we swapped our focus. Alright. He's reversing, I think. He thinks, maybe? He's a warm fire kind of guy, at least. That's all I know. Ouch. So we're gonna work him down. So yeah. Again, denying sea power to your opponent. Dude, gotta love that battleship dispersion. That was nasty. Now y'all probably wondering, why am I moving my ship so erratically? Why am I swapping my targets out? Giving this guy too much lead. Holy crap. Let's see what happens with our guys. Right. Alright, here comes his torpedo bombers. I am about to get dropped. Ow! How did he... Alright, about to get hit by a torpedo here. I'm going down. I am going down. Maybe I can get one more salvo off on him. Nope, he's got his torpedoes going off somewhere else to engage something else. Oh, they're going out for another pass. What are you? Come on, stay alive. Okay. I'm gonna live. I'm gonna live. E, however, I need to stop firing AP at him, and I need to start slinging HE his range, downrange to him. Oh, our destroyer's got him bagged. Again, something you would never see in reality. We're gonna win by capping, but that is essentially what the earliest battleship designs were like. They were slow ships. They were designed to essentially go at it. And I'm sorry if you're hearing my cat. Oh shoot, here we go. Here we go. Again, these ships were designed... He's not going after the right targets. He chose the wrong targets. But yeah. Big, slow, lumbering ships. And obviously time made them better. They got better engines. They got better... better propulsion plants, better guns, better armor protection. Better bells and whistles, essentially. All the bells and whistles they had got better. And the next ship I'm going to demonstrate of that design, you know, obviously, I'll probably pull up one of the British World War I class battleships and a Japanese battleship as well. And we're gonna win. And he's second now. Just a matter of winning. But yeah, so that's not, you know, that's what the idea was. You would have these ships line up and mass volley fire onto them. And if you have all these large caliber guns hitting stuff, odds on favor, you're going to do a lot of hurt. So we're going to go back to port. And we're going to look up the modern See, the Dreadnought was great. Everybody loved it. Everybody stopped building pre-Dreadnought battleships overnight. Literally, everybody said these ships suck. We need to all have ourselves Dreadnought battleships. Hey, winner, winner, chicken dinner. Don't know what I want, but I want something. Defensive Fire AA mod. Ooh, I might put that on my high-tiered ships. So, then came the Super Dreadnought battleship. These were designed to meet a standard form, function, and all that jazz. The first of these was the Orion class, which, again, British battleship design. I'll pull her up just to demonstrate her for you guys. I'm not going to buy her because I don't have the money, but you guys get the idea. Let me see if I can pull her up. What was she built? But what's the difference between the Orion class? Well, the British realized that wing turrets suck. The idea is the ship is a lot more seaworthy and the guns are a lot more stable as well if they're all mounted on the center line as opposed to having wing turrets. And again, everybody else copied this design because, well, they realized that this design rocks. The Americans have realized that this design rocks since they started building Dreadnought battleships. I mean, if you look at the Wyoming class, the Florida class, the Tennessee class, yeah, we like naming our battleships after states. The New York class. The New York class was the America's first answer to the Super Dreadnought question. What are we going to build them? They were armed, again, as I said, as battleships got better, as battleships got bigger. They were built longer, they were built wider to carry more guns. And in the Texas's case, this is her World War II configuration, not with that on, but here, I'm going to go pull up her actual World War II scheme. Is that it right there? Ooh, I like that. If I have the gold, I'll buy that later. Again, this is the Texas. This is the USS Texas. She's a New York class battleship. She's one of America's first super dreadnoughts. What separates a super dreadnought from a dreadnought? Well, there's a couple of things. One, the armor's better. Two, they're faster. Three, they have a lot more firepower. A lot more firepower. Why do I even have this flag mounted? No, whatever. Yeah, there's a lot more firepower on it. And there's plenty of examples of super dreadnoughts still in existence today. I mean, early dreadnought battleship designs were scrapped after the First World War. The super dreadnought design was a design that fixed a lot of the flaws in the dreadnought style battleship. Namely, they added torpedo bulges to protect against torpedo strikes. They upped their anti-aircraft suites. They upped the firepower. They got bigger guns, more powerful engines, blah blah blah. Same thing, like I said. In the Texas's case, this is, like I said, her World War II configuration. She's got a shit ton of AA. She's got well, she has a crap ton of AA guns, as you can see, mounted on her A turret and her X turret. They realized that by the Second World War, there are going to be aircraft are going to be of importance. However, I'm going to be doing an earlier ship that was built, the Fuso. Fuso was actually the largest. When she was constructed, she was actually the largest battleship of her time. And she was the largest battleship of her time. She mounted, I believe, 12 14-inch guns on her. She outranged all of her opponents, all of her adversaries were far outranged by her. I mean, this ship was incredible, and you know, it's kind of sad what her fate was. She got After the First World War, she basically did tours around the world to show, look at the Japanese Navy, blah, 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 blah. Again, Japanese Navy had different standard requirements for their battleships than the U.S. had. The Japanese were an island nation out in the Pacific, They don't have to worry about, crossing from one ocean to another. All the crossings they need to go to are wide enough for this ship to fit through. And if we look at we're looking at the Fuso here, right? She is a big ship. Let's go pull up the Texas. The Texas, comparatively speaking to the Fuso, is small. These ships were built around the same time. These ships were finished around the same time, and we can see the size difference of these things is amazing. The Fuso is not only longer, but she is wider and she's heavier than the Texas. She also packs more firepower than the Texas. And yes, I am playing a Tier 6 Japanese cruiser. In case you're wondering why, here's why, guys. Tier 4 Myogi never existed. Paper design ship. Congo, built in 1913 as a battle cruiser. She didn't become a battleship until 1927 when the Japanese up-armored her. So this would technically be the next ship in the line. Again, Amagi, design, Nagato. This is why I hate Japanese battleship design. So I've honestly asked myself, when am I going to stop at this? I'm stopping after the First World War, honestly. So these are World War I style battleships. This is the Japanese battleship. This is the Fuso. Again, super dreadnought design of battleship. She's faster. She's got more guns. She's got more armor. Let's take her out for a spin. So, again, Japanese battleship, Fuso, built in 1915. She packs 12 14-inch guns, tongue, English, in 6 dual-mounted turrets. And we're top tier. Excellent. So we're going against a lot of contemporary designs. The Queen Elizabeth class was the last modern battleship the British built during the First World War. The Byron class was the last battleships the Germans built before the First World War. Let me get off topic here on this design, but as we can see, the Fuso again involves that super firing center line gun arrangement. All these everything pretty much after Tier 5 have that concept going on because they realize this concept rocks. The guns are a lot more accurate. They're a lot more stable. The only people who really didn't catch on with this was the Germans. The Germans, after the Nassau, built 2 more classes after the Nassau class that still incorporated wing turret designs. I'm sure they did, yeah. The first of this was the Kaiser class. They were built the same idea. The Kaiser class battleships. They had an interesting wing turret layout where the port wing turret was more forward than the starboard wing turret. And the result of this was that she could not bring all of her guns, and she had an open line. The idea was that she could use her guns to mass all her firepower in one location. The problem was she had a very, very narrow angle of fire for that. She could only bring all her guns to bear in, I believe, a 2.5 to 5 degree radius. she basically was absolutely, utterly worthless when it came to broadside volley fire. And that Cleveland was turned away. They need to take care of him. Alright. Come on, target Cleveland. Smoke his buddies up. That was my contemporary. Shells. Bad lead. Bad lead. That's the Bayern action. Okay. Yeah, in case anyone's wondering, I am playing with a shitty internet connection. I can't help it. Guns! Aim! Blow this guy out of the water, why don't we? Yeah, I am getting a little further into my gameplay here. I'm being targeted now, and haha, I'll take over Vince. Too much lead, though. I'll take it. Kill the DD. Got him. Anyway, like I said. Again, these guys were building these ships bigger, better, faster, stronger because the other guy was building their ships bigger, better, faster, stronger. This was going on between 1908 and all the way up until 1918, believe it or not. All the way up until 1918, okay? So, what happens, like I said, when you have all these ships being built, the idea of these ships was they have them, so we need our ships to do the same thing. And bye-bye, Cleveland. All I need is one good shot. I'm moving stationary, I just realized that. These guys are... You missed. Alright, this guy's a map. Kill this guy. He has no honor. Map hugging weirdo. Anyway. Again, like I said, these ships, you know, the idea was they have their big battleships. We need to have our big battleships in case we go to war with them, which was what everyone was gearing up to in the early 1900s. It was this idea that, you know, we need to do this. And again, that mechanic principle of decisive naval engagements was coming into question. Oh wow. I just realized that we are the only ships left on this planet. So I'm probably about to expect. We need to sink this guy. Focus his head down. Being on the fire, it's probably the Fusa that's lighting up. Oh, no, wait, it's this guy. He's got the balls. Alright, I'm gonna go turn my ship away. So I can bring my guns to bear over to here. Give this guy a party gift. He's getting close, he's trying to engage with torpedoes. So what happened? Well, as we all know, Archduke Franz Ferdinand decided to go on vacation in Serbia, and some asshole in Serbia didn't like him. Therefore, that asshole decided that killing him and his pregnant wife was a great idea. Oh, by the way, he was also 18. This is why probably some young kids should not be why we shouldn't let politically motivated people tell us what to do. There's a lesson in that to be said, obviously. But anyway, Gabrielle Princip murders Archduke Franz Ferdinand
and his wife in Sarajevo, Bosnia. And what happens then, obviously, we all know what history. What happens in history. Austria pretty much declares war, everybody goes to war. They finally get the chance to use their big, heavy battleships against one another. I need to stop firing. If I can just stop firing long enough, I will drop off detection. Actually, I am off detection. I'm just, this map is that small. Alrighty, my heal needs to hurry up. I'm being targeted by 3 different ships. Yay. I don't know who's targeting me, but they need to not target me. Anywho, what was going on at this time? Like I said, they all have these big ships. They all finally get to use their big ships in 1916 when the German Navy under Admiral Scheer attempted to engage the British Navy off the coast of the Scapa Flow in what now become known as the Battle of Jutland. This is the first big capital ship engagement of the war, and honestly, it was a bit of a letdown. All the navies employed their dreadnoughts. The Germans outnumbered the British. Or the British outnumbered the Germans because, let's face it, the British, it's the Royal Navy we're talking about here. I'm going to die. I'm going to die, and I died because I got ganged up on RNGs by a few so. Yeah. Anyway, so now I'm dead. I never said I was best at this game, but I'm not bragging. Anyway, so Battle of Jutland. World War I goes on. Like I said, they're building the battleships. They're realizing that they need bigger battleships. I know. Funny concept, right? One of the things that comes with building bigger ships with more powerful engines is they get bigger guns. Yay! Because it's bad enough we're slinging, multi-ton shells at each other. Let's go sling bigger multi-ton shells at each other. Let's get a free guide. We're gonna get this guy. At least we know when he's getting shot at. Common decency. So at least they know that, hey, we're getting shot at. This right here is the Bayern class, by the way. She's the last battleship the German Navy built during the First World War. So what happened in her design? What made her different than her cousins? Well, the Germans finally caught on. Congratulations, Germany! You finally caught on with what every frickin' other nation's been doing. They built super firing turrets on her. They built up an armor around her citadel. She had already been. The German battleships at the time were actually pretty well armored. They suffered from smaller caliber guns compared to their opponents. The Nassau was armed with 11-inch guns as opposed to 12-inch guns of the other navies. Huh. Never mind. The Koenig also got the message, but the Bayern addressed the need the Germans had woefully inadequately asked. They built a bigger caliber gun on their ship. But, as we all know, World War I ended with Germans being defeated. And one of the stipulations of the German defeat was she was no longer allowed to have either a navy or an air force. And because of that, the Germans had to surrender their planes, they had to surrender their ships to the Allies as war reparations. Again, everybody was pissed off at the Germans for a war they didn't start. Germany didn't start World War I, Austrians did. I will always defend that. So, why? So what happened to the Byron-class battleships? Well, they were built, and sadly, they were never used. They were built, and they basically just stayed in their port until the war's end. And what happened at the war's end was she was supposed to be delivered to the British to be used as target ships. I.e., the British were basically just going to use these ships as a means to blow their basically test guns on her. Her fate was to be sunk by gunfire by the British. The Germans did not want to have any of this. The Germans didn't like this idea. So the Germans said, yes, we'll give you the battleships. You can come pick up your battleships. And so they sailed them out in the middle of the Scapa Flow. They sailed all 4 of the Byron-class battleships they had built out in the middle of the Scapa Flow. And in the biggest bitch slap of a sore loser, of a bunch of sore losers you could ever imagine. I wouldn't say it's really a sore loser. I'd say if we can't have them, you can't have them. The Germans scuttled their ships right in front of the British. I'm pretty certain there was a Royal Navy officer somewhere that got fired for that. But yeah, that's what happened to the remainder of the German surface fleet. They were pretty much scuttled by their own country. After the end of the First World War. Now, and this is kind of where I'm going to leave it off, because after the First World War, everyone kind of caught this big, massive, holy shit moment. And they looked at themselves and they realized the bodies they had stacked. The First World War was a devastating war. This was the most devastating war in human history at the time. There was more people who had died because of this war. And they looked at the various reasons of what started this war. And they saw the buildup of warships as a reason for why World War I happened, which is kind of it's a truth. It's a horrible, horrible truth, but it's a horrible truth, but it's truth nonetheless. That the war was started because nations were building up if they got bigger ships, we need bigger ships. If they have more ships, we need more ships. And as a result of this, the various nations of the world, and they dragged Germany into this, decided that, okay, we need to stop. We need to have a big hold the fuck out moment, chill the fuck down moment, pardon my French, folks, and stop building warships. Stop building battleships. We need to X-nate battleships. So, in 1922, this is where the third and final change of our battleship designs occurs. In 1922, the Washington Naval Treaty is signed. And part of the Washington Naval Treaty, apart from scrapping several battleships across all the nations, you know, all nations are allowed to have X amount of battleships, instead of 135 concept, so for every, or 531 concept, so for every 5 battleships the U.S. has, the Japanese have, you know, 3 for every 1, and France gets 1, Italy gets 1, there's a bunch of other nations involved in the Kellogg on the Washington Naval Treaty, but the long story short is there's one of the big stipulations is there's a 10-year moratorium on battleship building. On building of battleships and battle cruisers. And why was this important? Well, it's important because there's one more thing, there's another stipulation that I'm leaving out here. The other stipulation of this was that these any future battleships being built, any future warship being built actually, had to be limited. Her weight was to be limited to X amount of tons. You couldn't build a warship over a certain weight limit. And it was slapped on the Germans as well, even though they weren't allowed to build a navy. I don't know, maybe people were always expecting Germany's going to rearm. Germany's going to build a navy. We might as well hamstring them while we're at it. So, I figured I can talk about this because with the war spite, because again, she's a Queen Elizabeth class battleship. She's actually the most famous Queen Elizabeth class battleship. Most famous battleship of her class. She's known as the Grand Old Lady in England. She fought in both World Wars. She has the most battle stars of any British, or battle recognitions of any British battleship. And okay, don't be there. So the Washington Naval Treaty goes into effect. A lot of battleships that there were 4 battleships the U.S. was building at the time that they had to put the kibosh on. And they realized that they didn't want to scrap. There's one thing that didn't say anything about battleship, about their building. They could build. There was nothing said about aircraft carriers. Nothing was said about building aircraft carriers. The Washington Naval Treaty is significant in the effective design battleship because not only did it change the design of battleship, but it put into place the means for the end of the battleship in fleet usage. Modern battleships would be obsolete within 20 years after. Modern battleships are actually going to be obsolete within 10 years after the Washington Naval Treaty was signed, as carrier aircraft got better, as they were able to carry heavier loads to deliver more powerful ordnance onto targets. And again, like I said, this is how the Washington Naval Treaty spelled the death knell of battleship. There's a couple of other factors that spelled the death knell of battleships. One of them was actually submarines. You see, the thing that Mahan argued about that he didn't take into account, because they didn't exist. Obviously speaking, they didn't exist, so he can't have taken them into account. But aircraft, submarines, and submarines were 2 things he did not take into account. Good and obvious reasons. They did not exist when he wrote that book. Nobody took them into account, actually. Even after they came into being, they saw them as novelties. A lot of these big gun admirals saw submarines and saw aircraft as a novelty that would be better suited for commerce rating than towards an actual fleet engagement. Again, they didn't realize how devastatingly effective these submarines would be. As a matter of fact, if anybody, one of the most famous submarine captains of the First World War, he's not famous because he was a submarine captain. He's famous because he was in a Broadway play. Well, he was depicted in a Broadway play. Anyone ever heard the sound of music? Anyone ever heard the name Von Trapp and the sound of music? If anyone hasn't, you've been living under a rock and you are an uncultured swine. I'm not doing any good objective plan, but I'm going to get from here, lit on fire. He can't see me, so he can't shoot me. His rounds landing short. Hold your fire long enough, eventually. My guns around. Again. Okay, who's spotting me? That Queen Lizzie. Queen Lizzie spotting me. Again, like I was saying, the destroyer is that? That's the Agile. I can tell you that's the Agile. It would be Agile. That little prick. Just let him sit in the cap and not enough to do another shells. Again, like I said, Captain Von Trapp of the Austro-Hungarian Navy earned the highest award you can earn in the Austro-Hungarian Navy when he took his U-boat and sank a British battleship with his U-boat. That's just super fun, but to play as she's just downright cancerousness. Fire! No fun against them. I cannot have any fun with them. It's gonna be a nice suck in this game. My team's playing super passive. It's not even funny. He's gonna be able to stealth fire on me. I love it. God help me, I love it. Not sure how, but we start killing this shit. That's how. Alright, so we're looking at in front of these Colorado class. What's known as one of the standard class American battleships. Her, along with the New York, New Mexico, Nevada class, built was known as standard class, the class of standard battleships. They had a very standardized weight, they had standardized, everything about them was standardized. Their weights, their dimensions, their width. The only thing that varied on them was the caliber of their guns. Fire! And for whatever reason, he's slinging an HE at me. Well, good obvious reasons. We're firing equal caliber shells at each other. I think I'm making it more hurt. He's doing problem solved. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, standard battleships. Standard battleships. That's what they were called. They were. He's reloading his guns. He's gonna try to open up on me. I love it. I love it. This guy is hiding behind an island. He's staying close enough to slow down and fight. God almighty. I hate Atlanta class battleship, class cruisers. These things are just cancer. It's like I can stay alive long enough to not be destroyed by these guys. Good Lord almighty. The volume of fire I'm receiving is unholy. I'm gonna burn down. Alright, I'm gonna stay alive long enough to get another. I can stay alive long enough to get another salvo. I'd be a happy camper. But I don't think I am. I am a dead man. I'm a dead man floating, and I am one well to fire away from that. 3, 2, 1. Aha! He's able to get at least one more salvo away. Got one more hit on the iron dude. Yes! Reporting the target position. Can't type tonight. But yeah, so I think that's where I'll leave it tonight. Because, let's face it, Alright, so when we think about the way battleship design, what I was intending to do tonight was to explain how the origin of modern battleships came to be. How they were originally, designed to answer a certain question, designed to meet a certain argument. And when they actually did get the chance to meet them in the Battle of Jutland, they were astounding success against everything other than themselves. Of all the dreadnought battleships deployed at Jutland, none of them were sunk. A lot of pre-dreadnought battleships got blown out of the water. A lot of battle cruisers got blown out of the water. But no dreadnoughts were blown out of the water. So I showed you exactly, the early dreadnought designs, how they vary, differ, and according to the needs of the nations that built them. Case in point with the South Carolina class, she had to be wide. She had to be thin enough to fit through the Panama Canal. Matter of fact, if we look at her and the beam, her beam right here, compare her to the beam of the USS Missouri, they're not all that different in their width. The Missouri is just a little bit wider than the South Carolina is. Hell, bring up South Carolina again. Yeah, South Carolina and the Missouri. Missouri, I would say, probably has another 40 feet of beam on her. But then again, there were attempts made during the war to widen the Panama Canal, which is what was, what's supposed to design. Because ships get built bigger, then they got to be able to fit the Panama Canal. Hell, an aircraft carrier, modern-day Nimitz-class aircraft carrier, can fit the Panama Canal. And then I guarantee you, a Nimitz-class aircraft carrier is a lot wider than a South Carolina-class battleship. All right. So with that being said, I'm leaving you guys with that. So this is the history of warship design, the history of battleships, how we got our modern battleship designs the way they were, and next Friday, hopefully, God willing, if I'm not sick or anything like that, I want to see about making this a regular thing. So if you guys want to, watch this either now or later, feel free to leave a comment, or if you have a question about the design of these ships, I'd be more than happy to answer the question or do anything about that in regards to it. But yeah, where I plan to go to from here is German rearmament. I'm going to go with the moratorium on battleships building, and then the cuts to them. And I want to explain how that affected the design of that to how we got to here. How did we get to the Missouri? How did we get to the Iowa class? And that is a question I'll hopefully be able to answer tomorrow, or not tomorrow, but next Friday. Again, thank you guys for watching. Y'all have been excellent. Feel free to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for hopefully more content like this. I do this on the side. This is my side gig. I don't plan on getting paid to do this or anything like that. This is just a little bit of fun I do. Again, thank you all very much, and y'all have a good night.